So we're back here on another Couch Coach Live, a live edition of Couch Coach Live. We got our guy, our honorary, our other cousin, Jordan. Since you've been on here several times, you're an honorary cousin of ours as well. So what's going on, Jordan?
Not a whole lot, man. Just enjoying the week. I'm glad the draft is over and now everybody can focus on minicamp. And then, of course, I was going to say spring training, wrong sport, training camp. And then, of course, the regular season. And I think the schedule comes out May 12th.
Yes, next Thursday. Cannot wait. I cannot wait. Just the anticipation. Even tomorrow, they're gonna do like the international games tomorrow, so you'll know who's going overseas. So that's gonna be interesting as well too, like who Jacksonville's gonna play and what have you. But yeah,
I've heard, granted, I don't know what source some of my Bronco groups are having, but they say it's going to be the Broncos in Jacksonville in
oh,
England. I mean, we do play Jacksonville. It would make sense. We were supposed to play Atlanta in 2020 in England. And of course, COVID kind of shut that down. So we had to play them in Atlanta. So, I mean, it could be possible that it's us. I don't know for sure. We won't know until tomorrow.
yeah, because I think we might be in the running too. Because I know we go to Houston and we go to Indianapolis. So, that's right, because that'll be a road game for Jacksonville. That's right. So we won't go on the road in Jacksonville. So, yeah, because we go to Houston. Yeah, we go to Houston, Indianapolis in next year. So yeah, and like you said, that's another one scheduled release. I cannot wait. Hopefully, we'll probably do a show maybe that night as well too, because a lot of it, to me, it's a great. Even though I may go to maybe one or two games, oh maybe, but like when you're bye week, then that's the week that you're like, oh, that's gonna be the relief. But then you're gonna be so missing it. It's the most weirdest thing. Like we talk about football is just such a it gives you so many range of emotions. Like we just talked about it earlier, as far as not having a first round pick, but then when you don't have a first round pick, you feel like you're relieved, but then a part of you like, oh, I want to pick. I want that kind of that drama, that kind of that stress inducing type of uh the stress of getting the first round pick and getting it right. But great draft. And also we definitely a huge shout out to Cool and Box for having, we was on their stream for the play callers, man. That was fun.
It was.
That was fun. Yeah.
I definitely liked how they did it this year. I mean, granted, last year I was on there for the whole time, but it was mostly.
Yeah.
I know you were there for like a couple of picks, but it was just more like me. I think they had a guy named Tahati. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong.
Yep.
Steven and Cool and I, but it was just like, I didn't know how to react to the picks because I didn't care once the Broncos picked. I thought it was nice that they actually had the fans, like a lot of people who are in our NBA carousel, like Steve and Jennifer, Jay Nelson. I mean, it was just fun. It was a fun night. Definitely liked seeing your reaction too, just watching you players that want to slide down the board.
I was such a nervous wreck because I was like, because I'm telling you, the first domino was Derek Stingley Jr. went to Houston. Because I think it's weird because prior to the draft, it was probably, I want to say I did like 2 or 3 mock drafts. Like I'd been on other shows. And then like I'm seeing like guys, we doing these picks and I come, at 11 and it's just like, y'all still got Sauce Gardner on the board. Y'all still got Derek Stingley on the board. Y'all still got, I'm like, so if you do that like 3 or 4 times, you think to yourself, in your heart of hearts, your mind is telling you, this is not going to happen. But your heart is telling you, look, if this happens, if one of these guys fall into our lap at 11, like it would be an ideal situation, but it didn't happen. But like you said, it was a great draft, especially the opening round. It was very interesting, and it's definitely definitely was fun to say the least.
Definitely fun. And then I love Cool McCain once, and we'll probably get to it here in a little bit, when his Eagles traded for that wide receiver, and he just couldn't speak forever. He was just in shock.
Yes, and then that's another thing too, like those trades with the wide receivers, obviously. And I know when JJ broke the news about Hollywood Brown, we were like, huh? Like it's like, like all that stuff. It was just such a crazy, crazy night, and all those picks. And then I remember we was talking about the Minnesota trade, and it's like you got a third and a fourth to move down 20 spots. Like in
It
most
didn't.
years,
Yeah, it didn't make sense to us. I mean, you
right?
wanted a first round pick in that deal at least.
Right. You would have got at least 2023 first round pick. That's how I was like, this year was different. This year was extremely different when it came to like trades. And like, it's almost like you really could have gone out for pennies on a dollar, like
Mm-hmm.
essentially, especially for a team like a Detroit who had like a bevy of picks. It was okay for them to lose 2 picks to move up 20 spots and get a guy like a Jameson Williams. So it's weird.
The draft is always weird. I know. What was it in the? I want to say it was in the third or fourth round. The Broncos were on the clock. I'm like, okay, we're going to draft, and then they traded down 5 spots.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are we doing? But then again, we ended up I think it was like a 7th round pick for next year. At least we got draft picks. I know going into this draft for next year's draft we only had 4, so now we have 5. So I was like, all right, that makes sense. Get some
Yep.
draft picks. But of course, the Broncos. I mean, I have to tip my cap to our general manager. I think he's done a phenomenal job. Of course, on this show, we've talked about the Russell Wilson trade, and that was essentially our first round pick. They actually made a video, and I thought it was kind of funny, of George Payton, our general manager, calling Russell Wilson, saying, "Hey, of course we didn't have that draft pick," saying, "Hey, we're going to pick you here," and acting like it was a draft pick. It was really funny.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was funny, man. I was like, the draft was just great, and it's always one of those, like we said, we always talk about the NFL never ever gets this stuff wrong. Like this is the best reality television of all time. Like it be.
I was just surprised at how fast the first round went because, I mean, like you said, we were on with Cool McCain and Steven. I know you left after you guys picked, but we were looking at it. We were already 20, almost towards the end. It's like, it hasn't been 4 hours. What's going on? Come on, guys. Let's slow it down a little bit. Because like you said, we had so much fun on that show.
Yeah, and like you said, the pace of it, because a lot of it too, and I think they changed that because it used to be 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's 10. I think that helped as well because I remember when we talked about it even on the live stream. Well, I remember when we had to pick in 2020, and that, we had the second overall pick, and it was almost 9:00 before they announced Chase Young, and I'm thinking to myself like, we gonna be here all night.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I actually kind of like that they have cut down the time a little bit. It makes us, not as antsy to say, okay, when's our next pick? How much longer till this first round is done? Because I know a couple of times, like you were saying, they went to, 11 o'clock here in the Mountain Time Zone, or 10 o'clock here in the Mountain Time Zone, which is midnight where you are. I mean, that's just, it's way too late to say, okay, let's end the draft now. I mean, I was happy that they ended before midnight.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. It's definitely, especially East Coasters, we definitely appreciate not too late of a late of an ending. So we gotta talk about we're gonna recap the draft first part of the show. So we'll go first. Your biggest winner of the draft.
I'm going to have to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. I just like what they did. I mean, you look at their first round draft pick, they got defensive end Jordan Davis, who's going to help that defense. And of course, they got A.J. Brown, which we touched on, gave him a 4-year, $100 million contract. It was amazing to me that they could actually pull something off of that with the Tennessee Titans to say, you're going to get worse, we're going to get better. And now you actually have a home run hitter for Jalen Hurts. I know that's your division, Cool, but man, Cool and Chris. I mean, Cool and Chris are, in both those divisions. But I mean, Cool got the great part of the deal, and you're sitting there going, how are we going to cover this guy for Couch Coach? It's just, I definitely think you have to go with the Philadelphia Eagles, at least in that round. And what they did after that was phenomenal too. So they got needs. They definitely added depth. And I'm not going to say they're the team to beat in that division, but they certainly got better. And unfortunately for you, Couch Coach, you're going to have to watch out for them.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Well, hopefully we got something for him, and hopefully we got their old quarterback, and hopefully he can do some things on that end. But I mean, it's a few winners. Like I think this the beauty of this draft was it was a lot of winners. Like it's a lot of guys. This was like we talked about. This was the draft of the trenches, where if you needed trenches, this could be a area where you can rack up. We look at like, I definitely the biggest winner, and I think it's just one of the things where it is what it is. I know people say don't we're gonna just beat over your head, but what the Jets did, I think the Jets what they did was phenomenal. Obviously getting a guy like a Sauce Gardner, especially in a division where you got like a Tyreek Hill. You also, so you look at those type of situations. Hey, we know we're in a pass happy league. We have to get some defenders to kind of, go against that. And then also getting Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's another one where I could definitely see a Wilson to Wilson connection coming together. I think he'll be solid for them as well. And I think at this point, the history of the NFL in the modern era, you really can't go wrong with an Ohio State wide receiver. So it's almost like I think and that's a credit to Brian Hartline and what he's doing down in Columbus. And then also Jermaine Johnson. You get, and that's another one. You trade up in the first round to get a guy like this, and these three guys were the best, pretty much one of the best guys in their position group, and to get those. So on a Thursday night, you got three guys that's going to make an immediate impact on your team. And then Friday night, we talked about, like I said, it was the bargain night where you're going to get some deals at the bottom of the barrel. And that's saying that Brees Hall is one, but you're getting a guy like him that could be, a first round talent to couple with a guy like a Michael Carter in that backfield. So this is a situation. Hey, these would be the two guys that could potentially stop Josh Allen from being on the field, and and they're their frenetic offense that don't punt the football. So look at it. So
I
they were
can
my biggest wins. Yeah.
I definitely agree. I had the Jets there too, Gaucho. I mean, I did like what they did in the first round, and they just added talent.
Yeah.
And we know they're trying to compete with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, a lot of times the Jets are a laughing stock of not only the NFL but of that division. And now they definitely added pieces to their secondary, added pieces on offense. It's gonna be a tough division for the Bills. I still think the Bills win it, but I don't think it comes as easy as it was last year.
Yeah, I think this is the Jets team where, and it's funny because I looked at them last year, and I know this. This is, I guess, an original phrase. We talk about like NBAs and all. Who's your league pass team, the team that you want to watch. And I looked at the Jets as the team last year, but now, coupled with the acquisitions that they got now, I was like, this is definitely a must see, a Sunday ticket type of team for me. So I look at that as like as a definitely intriguing. There's a few other teams I also too I looked at as well. I think I actually like your trading partner what they did the Seattle Seahawks. Um, like we talked about it. We talked about it before we went live on Thursday. Like Seattle's gonna find a way to screw this up. But I
Mm-hmm.
think and I think at this point Charles Cross being there, you really couldn't screw it up. He fell into your lap. So it's like one of the things you really couldn't screw up. Also getting Bo Mayfield, the linebacker. I think that's a solid acquisition. Obviously, what they're doing in Seattle, they're kind of like they're more so like rebuilding on the fly. I think they got some good guys as well. Kenny Walker definitely will help that running back committee in Seattle. I think a guy that people, and I talked about him on one of the podcasts this week as a draft recap. A guy who I really liked that they drafted was Kobe Bryant. I think people don't fail to realize that this man won the Jim Thorpe Award. And he was on the other side of Sauce Gardner. And Sauce Gardner didn't give up a touchdown in his collegiate career. So we all know that Sauce didn't really, people weren't really throwing on Sauce's side. And then you got a guy in Kobe Bryant who they was testing him, and then you see like his highlights. He's like, making plays, pick sixes, picking the ball off. But for him to win the Jim Thorpe Award,
I definitely agree with you. I mean, you're looking at definitely a pretty solid pickup for that team. And like you said, they don't give NCAA awards for nothing. And so for him
Right.
to get that, and honestly, when he got picked, I know there were memes out there for Kobe Bryant. It's like, who is this guy? And then when you look at it, it's like, okay, this is
Yep.
a football player. Spelled
Yeah. With
differently,
a
I
C. With a
realize.
C.
Yeah,
Yeah. Kobe with a
exactly.
C. Yeah. But yeah, he was and actually and the thing about it, I talked to him during the combine, so that was kind of a good thing to talk to him about stuff. And just he talked, I asked him about him wearing the number 8 in the college football playoff, and then just what was the kind of one of the things that the takeaways about being in the college football playoff, and and then think about it. Then you look at Jamal Adams is in that secondary as well, so I definitely think Seattle is a team. I'm not saying they aren't better off than what they were, but you can see a plan. You can see some stuff happening there. They got some good pieces. And I know, like you said, we talked about it on the show, like Russell Wilson, like I know he's pissed because like, oh, y'all want to get an offensive lineman because last year you waited until like the 6th or 7th round to get one. So
Well, and the question is who's going to be their quarterback? Is it going to be my buddy Drew Lock, or is it going to be what? It's in their backup, Geno Smith. I mean, who knows? But at least they upgraded on the offensive line. But you're definitely right. When Russ was in Seattle, all he wanted was an offensive line. They never got it to a. They never got him one. It's almost like the Aaron Rodgers thing when
right.
I was waiting for a wide receiver in the first round. Granted, they got it in the second or third, but still, you need those pieces to make those quarterbacks happy. I'm not sure that Russell Wilson is looking at it going, "Oh, they got an offensive line." Well, where was that for me? He's in Denver in a better situation, but I'm sure last year's like, "Where's my offensive line? I need
Right.
you guys to develop offensive line." Same with Aaron Rodgers, wide receiver. Of course, we know what happened when Devontae Adams left. So I mean, it's. I do think Seattle definitely has built a solid foundation. Now, who's going to be their quarterback? That's a different issue, and that's for a different show.
Yeah, and that's going to be the interesting as far as who's going to win that quarterback battle between Geno Smith and Drew Lock, and that's definitely going to be intriguing to say the least.
It's definitely a storyline for minicamp, and I still want to call it spring training. It's training camp.
Right. Yeah. I know, right? But yeah, and that'd be right around the corner, like we said. That's another thing where you look at coming up. And then another team I kind of wanted to kind of highlight too as far as a winner was the Chiefs. I think what they did, obviously getting Trent McDuffie, pretty much helped that secondary. George Kalafis off the edge, so that definitely is going to help because we definitely don't know the uncertainty in Kansas City on that defensive line. So
That's definitely true. I mean, I know
yeah,
Carrie Johnson. Shout out to her. She's on the
yep,
NFL carousel with us. She came on,
Chiefs,
and she
yep,
was really excited when they drafted both of their picks. I could tell like they got better.
yep,
I still think though they're the team to beat in the AFC West. Yeah, you
yep,
got some good pieces, but you still have Mr. Patrick Mahomes.
yep. And Scott Moore, yep, and Carrie, yeah, yeah, I remember when we played Kansas City. Yeah, I got a I got a little bit of a verbal lashing, but hey, deservedly so because we was horrible that game.
Well, at least you haven't lost to him. What is it, 10, 11, 12
Oh
times? I've
Lord,
lost count.
right?
I know the
Oh my
Broncos
gosh,
haven't beaten Kansas City since Peyton Manning was quarterback. So she's had the upper edge on that one.
yeah. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, when we played Kansas City, it wasn't pretty. So, any losers in this draft?
I just the one team, and we've touched on it, the Tennessee Titans. I know they
Yeah,
got a couple of wide receivers. They got Traylon and Burks and Kylie, or might be Kyle Phillips. Sorry if I'm screwing these names up, but the thing is yes, they got wide receiver core, but you
yeah,
got rid of AJ Brown. How are you gonna, you know, who's going to catch the ball from Ryan Tannehill? We know it can't be Derrick Henry. Henry's a great runner, but he can't do everything. So that's just my main question. That's the only loser. But otherwise, I thought most of the teams did pretty solid.
Teams did for the most part. And you even look at some of the grades across the board from other, obviously from other other content creators, as far as NFL draft wise. A lot of people everybody pretty much either got an A through a C. I really didn't see a lot of D's, a lot of F's. I think the Patriots was the one I looked at, and more so the loser, but more so a loser in the sense of questionable, especially like Cole Strange. I think that was kind of interesting because they traded back, which we all knew that was going to happen because New England death taxes and they're going to trade their first round pick or trade out at some point. I'm shocked that they stayed in the first round. I think that's probably maybe the situation that's how crazy this draft is because normally they're going to the third round or the second round, and so that was interesting. Cole Strange, and then even though it's funny because I don't know if the Rams were like kind of trolling because they were like, well, we were looking at him and I'll pick at 104, whatever they were at. So, and then getting barely zapped, I thought that was really odd. Considering the fact that you have now at this point coming to the season, it's going to be a second year quarterback. To me, that doesn't make any sense because you essentially this barely zap isn't going to see the field because just the simple fact of he's right there, right around that same as far as the age wise. Like I think if you were to get like a backup for Mac Jones, it needs to be a veteran guy. So
I agree with that.
And you're gonna get a guy like that. And you gotta think about it because we still had like there's a lot of couple guys who still on the board. Then like Sam Howell, I know for certain was still available because they got him quite high. Well, I mean, not high, but more so higher than Bailey Zapp probably predicted as well, because a lot of people didn't think he was gonna get. He was gonna probably maybe like a 6 or a 7 to be undrafted. So
that's definitely an interesting point. I mean, if you look at the Patriots, though, are they going to try to do the Tom Brady thing? Which is, I know it's once in a lifetime. I realize that, but it's Bill Belichick. He thinks he can take any draft pick beyond the first and second round and insert into his offense. Of course, we know that their current quarterback was a first round pick, but the thing is there aren't as many Tom Brady's out there. I know you want the Tom Brady, but there's only one of him. I just don't see the quarterback that you were talking about being that type of Tom Brady. I understand Bill Belichick is an amazing coach. He's probably a few years from retiring. Who's going to take over once he does retire? Well, they still have these two quarterbacks on the roster, but I definitely think you need a veteran presence. I mean, the Broncos tried it with Teddy Bridgewater, and Drew Lock last year, but definitely you need a veteran to push that younger guy.
Yeah, because I was like, really? Like when they picked him, I was like, you really got to be kidding me. Like, why is this happening? Like for real. So, what was your favorite overall moment in the draft?
Well, other than seeing all these guys, be happy with their, draft status and getting where they got picked, I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos moment. I actually had to research this. And I mean, all these guys are happy, don't get me wrong. But that was Montreal, Washington. He's from a small FCS school. So not like an Ohio State, a USC, a Baylor. He's from Samford. Broncos took him in the 5th round. And the guy was just so happy. His hard work has finally paid off. He said he wanted to cry. I'm excited to see what this guy can do. He's going to be supposedly our return man. But, I mean, you're looking at a small school like Samford that's not known for its football. In fact, I don't even know how many championships they won in the FCS, but all I know is it's a small school. He's excited to get going. He's got a chip on his shoulder just because he's not at an Ohio State, a Baylor. The one thing I was surprised is there were no Texas players drafted, which I was surprised about. But you still look at it, and he's not from any of those big-time schools. It's a small school, so I'm excited for him. I'm excited to see what he can do on the field. I mean, he's ready to go. I mean, almost crying. That just shows you, even if you're a 5th round draft pick, don't give up your NFL dream.
Yep, most definitely. Yep, and yeah, and like I said, that's just a great testament to just sticking it in, grinding it out, and just just keep going and being here through all your that as well. But yeah, so my favorite moment, I think everybody knows my favorite moment. It was the first pick in the 5th round. The Washington Commanders selected a guy named Sam Howell from Waynesville, North Carolina, by way of the University of North Carolina. I affectionately call him my nephew because obviously he's way, he's a younger guy. So having him picked, and it was funny because Saturday I was like, look, I'm not leaving my house until Sam Howell gets drafted. Literally, because I was like, I'm gonna sit down because I want to see him get drafted. And when the pick came, I forgot one of our season ticket holders, and she said, Sam Howell, North Carolina. I swear to you, Jordan. I think if we lived on the same street, you would have heard me in this house saying yes, as if like the Commanders have won the Super Bowl. That type of euphoric feeling was just something that you cannot replicate. You couldn't smack the smile off my face Saturday. I mean, it was present the whole entire day.
I can imagine. I was actually surprised that Sam Howell didn't get picked, earlier. But we've talked about. I don't know if we've talked about it on this show, but I know with Cool McCain and Steven, we were just talking about the quarterback class isn't exactly strong. I was surprised that only one quarterback went off the board in the 1st round, and that was Kenny Pickett, which I thought was going to be Malik Willis. I knew Pittsburgh would go ahead and grab a quarterback, but I thought it wouldn't be Kenny Pickett. And then, of course, I thought the Carolina Panthers might go in and get Malik Willis. I know Jennifer, we had her on. She's a huge Carolina fan, and she was like, I do not want a quarterback. All right. I understand where you're coming from. But, yeah, great move by you guys, Sam Howell. I mean, hopefully he'll turn into like a Tom Brady type, but you just need, a guy that you can develop. And I know how many quarterbacks you've gone through. It's just the same here in Denver. At least you've been consistent for a few years, but you definitely got maybe your franchise quarterback who's going to lead back to the playoffs in a few years. But it was definitely a good selection by you guys.
Yeah, it was just such a euphoric feeling because it kept on saying like, all right, let's go and get him. And I kept and it's funny because I kept on looking, especially that 4th round. I'm like, all right. Because I know we was like at 146, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking at other strings of quarterbacks coming down. I'm like, okay, well, nobody needs a quarterback because I kept on looking at the ticket like, okay, Denver doesn't need a quarterback. Indianapolis don't need a quarterback. Then I was like, it was one team. I was like, Houston, oh, they don't, they got Davis Mills, but please don't get a quarterback. I kept on like looking at that. But then that 5th round pick, I was like, yes, like I'm not gonna lie, like getting him, like you said, I think it's like you said, he's gonna be like I talked about it on one of the shows. He's gonna be a developmental quarterback. He's gonna be a guy, not necessarily we're gonna need him for like a year or so. We just say he's gonna learn behind Carson and Taylor. So that's what really his biggest thing is. Hey, and like the opportunity could present itself. I think he'll be. Like I talked about it on the Watch the Football Guys podcast that I'm on, that I do, and we were talking about even though he kind of reminded me of how I used to look at the late Cole Brennan, a guy that like preseason he's gonna make preseason fun. He's gonna make that Thursday night game in a hot August night worth watching. So I think it like that he's going to kind of have that somewhat of a buzz, that kind of that popularity because he, and like Colt was very highly decorated in college as well. Sam broke pretty much all the records at UNC. He was a guy that was a Heisman favorite coming into the year, a potential 1st round pick. A lot of people was looking at this time last year. He was the first pick, but he was the first pick in the 5th round, so we'll give him that. So I think he'll just bring that excitement. I think he'll be a popular quarterback in this. Like we talked about in DC, two famous people in DC is the president and the backup quarterback for the Washington Commanders. So him and Joe Biden will probably it'll be neck and neck as far as popularity in DC.
And I definitely think we've talked about Wentz on your team. I mean, I don't see him playing for more than maybe 1 or 2 years. Yep. That all depends on his health, but it was a weird situation how you guys got him, and we've talked about that on this show. So definitely getting a young guy like Sam Howell, I got to give you props. It was a good draft pick. He's awesome. Hopefully he'll be your franchise quarterback coming up, and now you don't have to worry about quarterbacks for a while, at least a young guy. I mean, I always like to get the young quarterbacks in the late rounds just to have on your practice squad. You don't have to worry about that for the next few years.
Yeah. And like I was saying on a Watch the Football Guys podcast, where do you play Madden?
Oh yeah, I used to. So
and I'm still, even to this day, I've been playing. Obviously, I've been playing Madden since I was a kid. I still do create players. Like I put myself in the game. Like I know people too. Think, So right. So this year I'm like, all right, this is perfect. Howell to Powell, like that's going to be the connection. I'm going to be a wide receiver for the Washington Commanders in Madden 23. It's official. Like I've already had it in my mind.
There you go.
The Howell to Powell connection in Madden 23.
I usually make myself a quarterback, even though I know I'm not a great passer. But I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to put myself on the Denver Broncos. 100% everything. Let's just be a Hall of Fame player.
Exactly. Be like John Elway.
Exactly.
Yep. Because I usually be the quarterback, especially with Washington, because they never really have a quarterback, So I looked at that too. So yeah, I do that as well. So that's something I always have done, even now into adulthood. Like, hey, I still create players. Hey, this the world I live in. But yeah, I'm this year wide receiver.
It's always nice to play fantasy land because, I mean, granted, I know. We all want our teams to win the Super Bowl. I mean, yeah, it's great to win it in real life, but if you can't do that, why not do it in Madden with yourself?
Exactly. Think about this. It's therapy. Just imagine, like when we lost to Dallas the day after Christmas, we lost by almost about 50 points. What do you think I did next day? I played Dallas and beat them by like 30-some points. That was my therapy. Like.
It's a good therapy.
Exactly.
I mean, I used to do the same thing. Granted, I don't have a console anymore, but yeah, I would do the same thing. Just, okay, we lost this game. I want to get it away from my mind. Let's just beat whoever we beat by 50, 60 points.
Exactly. And throw the mercy rule out the train, out the window for real. It's a must. So, what was your overall takeaways from this draft?
It was a pretty good draft, like you said. It was a solid draft. There weren't a lot of bad grades on it, but I have to go. I'm going to be a little biased. I did like what Denver did. We got Nick Bonito, who's going to be either going to be our edge rusher or a linebacker. They haven't really decided. He's a guy that can rush the passer. He's going to be there to actually stop the run, get some sacks. I mean, I definitely wanted a different linebacker. I wanted Chad Muma out of Wyoming, but you know what? Nick Bonito was there. You had to take him. I also like what we did in the third round, getting probably the best tight end in this draft, Greg DeLuce. I'm going to screw that up until I get it right, but DeLuce. But the thing about that is I wanted a different tight end. I wanted a guy who, grew up in Colorado, and that was Trey McBride, but he went to Arizona. I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? We got the other tight end, Greg DeLuce, who, I mean, I'm not going to complain about it. I like the way he looked on film. He can catch the football. He can pass. He can actually, stop the rush. My question is, can he run block? That's the thing Denver has been missing. I like Alberto, but Alberto can definitely do everything you want in tight end. He can catch the football. He can pass block. He can also do stuff in the running game. So we need another guy opposite of him, and that's going to be Greg. So I like that. And of course, we touched on it with Montreal, Washington. I thought we needed a need at the special teams. I know he's going to play wide receiver, but the Broncos let their special teams player Spencer, I forget his last name, but because he didn't play a whole lot, but all he had to do was sit there and get the football and basically return it. He didn't do a great job. That is that Spencer guy, but I think Montreal Washington is going to step in. He has speed, so I like that. And of course, we won't know how this draft's going to step out in 2 or 3 years down the line. We'll actually know. I know there's a people I listen to on the radio here, 92.3 Altitude Sports. They actually went through the list of draft picks since I want to say 2010, and there were some really dud drafts with John Elway. So I think with this draft so far, I like what George Payton did. I like it. Now, how will it develop? We won't know. I know that Nick Bonino will play, the tight end will play, and the wide receiver will play. Who else will play from this draft? But I'm excited about it. I mean, I don't think there was really that bad of picks. I wanted more offensive linemen. We got one guy. We got a center out of Washington. But I think overall we did pretty well.
Yeah, it's definitely yeah, and it was like she said, it was just my biggest takeaways was this. It's funny now. I think one of the shows I was talking about is well too, where each city now has their own type of identity when it comes to the hosting. I think used to the New York Radio City Music Hall, all that. It was really the same every year.
It really was, yeah.
And now it's just like now it feels like an NFL festival. Like you look at just everything. You look at Cleveland was different last year. Vegas was different this year. I'm definitely curious how Kansas City is going to be, because Kansas City, I think that's going to really be an interesting draft next year. It being in Kansas City, like as far as that's going to definitely be that's definitely going to be interesting in how that's all going to play out.
And the best thing about the NFL moving the draft from New York, there are places like Cleveland. They're never going to get a Super Bowl. Kansas City isn't going to get a Super Bowl. I mean, unless Denver gets a new. I mean, there are words that are saying that we may build a new stadium unless we get a dome here in Denver. We're not going to host a Super Bowl. So I like that they're moving it around to have that NFL experience, even though that's not a Super Bowl, but it's definitely a festival. Like you said, 3 days. I mean, I thought Vegas did a phenomenal job of what they did.
Shoot, and Denver Lions get ready to build a new stadium soon. That fired left a few months ago.
Oh, I know. It was crazy. Somebody in one of our chats, it might have been the NBA carousel or the NFL, and they said the stadium's on fire. I'm like, the stadium's on fire? What? Wow. And then you look at it, and it was I think it was the second deck, if you go to the Broncos stadium, there's, your lower level, and then there's the club level, and that's actually where the fire is spelled out. And now they have to repair those suites. They got to repair that section. But even so, I know the Broncos are getting a new owner, and now there's talk, even with that fire and before, that we may get a new stadium. And it kind of makes sense just because, I've been to cold games in Denver. I'd like to see a dome. Don't get me wrong. I love in Power Field at Mile High, but sitting in the cold, that's a little rough. It'd be nice to have a dome on there just to keep, the warmth in, and who knows, no wind, no snow. I mean, it'd be perfect. But then again, I like those snow games as long as I'm not there in the stands.
Yeah, and like you said, and like you going back to your point earlier, as far as like these cities that probably more likely would not get a Super Bowl, they're getting an opportunity now to have a draft where something, even though a Super Bowl and a draft is two entirely different things, but it's still an event that's going to bring in money. So this stuff, an opportunity where this definitely can help these particular cities' economy. So, like you said, that's going to definitely be interesting too. So, just like this one thing, like we talked about the draft and just you've seen the guys getting drafted, the emotions, and just all of it too, where you just look at it. Then I always love the rookies, dapping up Roger Goodell. I think was a kid from Jackson, the one that got drafted by Jacksonville. He picked Roger Goodell up.
There's
I
a lot
forgot
of
who it was. Yeah.
there's a lot of players who wouldn't do that, but I did see that photo. It's like, okay, that's cool. You're excited. Why not pick
Yeah.
up the commissioner? Because most
Yeah.
players are very reluctant to even shake his hand. I mean, they're happy. They,
Mhm.
pull the jersey and run off. But I thought that was a
Yeah.
cool moment for sure.
Yeah. And we've came a long way from being in Roger Goodell's basement. So so that's one thing too, where now, and that's another thing too. You look at even Cleveland, and also this one too, where you're getting back to like a normalcy too. I think a lot of it too, what you're seeing. So it was definitely a great draft. It was like it's a 3-day holiday.
It
It's
should be a
definitely
3-day holiday. I mean,
yeah.
the draft and the Super Bowl, the day after the Super Bowl, make it a holiday,
Make
national
it a holiday.
holiday.
Make it a national holiday. Yep, make it an official national holiday. So we did our recaps, and I think this is our third year doing this as far as doing. So we'll transition now to some NFL superlatives, almost yearbook style. So I'm talking about the draft class of 2022. So we got the player likely to be the best player in 5 years.
I'm going to go with a Alabama wide receiver. I'm going with Jamison Williams. I don't know what it is with Nick Saban over in Alabama, but we saw it with Julio Jones. We saw it with, Jerry Judy's getting up there, but it's just, I feel he's going to be the best offensive weapon for this draft class. It's just something about these Alabama receivers. I don't know what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, it's something in the water in Tuscaloosa. Yep. So mine's going to be David Ojobu. I think even though we talked about the Achilles injury, but I think he'll be able to overcome that because we all know now in 2022, just the advances of medicine and definitely him coupling back up with Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator for Baltimore. That's another team that had a great, solid draft. I think he'll be a guy that's going to fit into that Baltimore mold as far as edge rushes that we've seen in the past. So I definitely think he will be the best player that we'll see in 5 years, and also just the great system that Baltimore has. And he'll probably out of all of them, the continuity. Like, as far as I would go on assumption that, Harbaugh still be there, some semblance or some type of, the coordinator may change. He may get an NFL job, but there's potential a constant at that in that organization. So let's see what we got. Our next superlative is player likely to be the offensive rookie of the year. We do offensive first.
I mean, I could easily, couch coach, go with, Kenny Pickett, but I'm not doing that. I mean, it's the easy pick just because he's going to start in Pittsburgh,
Right.
most likely.
Yeah.
But I'm going with Drake London
Okay.
over in Atlanta. He's got a chance to be one of the better receivers in this class. I understand they have Marcus Mariota, but the things that I've seen on film, if he gets, away from coverage, that's going to be some long gains, and just watch out. So and plus Marcus Mariota, the best thing about his game is, I know he wasn't a starter in Las Vegas with the Raiders, but he can run around in the pocket. By doing so, that'll leave London wide open for those bombs for, 15, 20, 30 yards. I just think if you have that explosive, offense like the Atlanta has, it's just got to be London. I know you're going to disagree with me, but that's okay.
You know what? No, I agree with you because he's a guy, and I think coupled with a Cal Pitts, those guys, they're going to jump up there and get it. Like when it comes to a 50-50 ball, I want those guys to be on the other half of 50. Like, I know for a fact they're going to go up and get it because Drake London was one of the guys I wanted at 11.
Yep, and I saw your disbelief when he was selected by the Falcons.
Right, because like we talked about, we look at him, his catching radius. He's a guy definitely he can definitely make a quarterback look good. Like, just such a guy like a Marcus Mariota. Hey, Mariota may throw it maybe a little bit far, but he can grab it in a bread basket. So I agree with you. And it's funny, I said that. And then Drake London, I have him as my offensive rookie of the year as well too. So I don't know, I agree. I think he's gonna be special. I like even with everything that happened at USC last year, I think people fail to realize sometimes it's Pac-12 after dark, and Pac-12 after dark wasn't sexy this year.
No, it
By
really
no
wasn't. I
stretch of the
mean,
imagination.
my favorite college just played the Pac-12, Colorado University, and
Oh yeah,
it was just
Buffaloes.
it was awful to watch games. I think throughout the half of the year, I'm like, I'm not even going to watch, but USC definitely has some good, talent. You just didn't see it in Pac-12 play, unfortunately, just because of how bad the teams were.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely Drake London definitely is on that list. So, defensive rookie of the year, who you got?
I'm going to go with a guy that's in the NFC North Division who was picked number 2, Aidan Hutchinson. I mean, the Lions need something good to go on. They need a guy who can sack the quarterback. They haven't had that in a long time. Their defense was really non-existent last year. That's because they were missing a guy in the middle who could actually rush the quarterback, or I should say on the edge, rush the quarterback. So I just think he's key for the Lions to do anything this year. That's going to be Aidan Hutchinson. I could see him, if he's on his game, 9 to 10 sacks. Even 8 would be great, but I see 9 to 10 sacks if he can get around the edge and get away from these offensive linemen. He has never played. Obviously, no one has played an NFL down with with these draft picks. But if he can adjust his game to the NFL level, I think the Lions have a pretty special guy.
Yeah, and I like that too. And I was kind of against Jacksonville getting Trayvon Walker, because part of me, I look at Aidan Hutchinson, but I think it was the blessing in disguise. I think he went to the perfect place. I definitely, with him, I like his makeup. I like a guy, especially of his mold. We talk about like a Dan Campbell defense, just Dan Campbell in general, where those guys fought. Like people, when you look at Detroit, you might look at it, Mike Cosmo, oh yeah, they were horrible. But no, they fought hard in every game. Like literally when we talked about Dan Campbell, we thought we were laughing as far as he was biting kneecaps. He literally was biting kneecaps 17 weeks out the season, to a point where they were scratching and clawing, to a point where, hey, they were, they were competitive. And then you bring in a guy like Aidan Hutchinson, which I think he can become like a leader day one. Like I think when we see them in Hard Knocks, I think he's going to stand head and shoulders above most of the people on the show. He's going to be a guy, I think he's going to be the leader of that team. We know like how emotional Dan Campbell can be and how people rally behind him. Then you bring in a guy like Aidan Hutchinson. Damn, you talk about biting kneecaps, they're going to run through walls in the city with this personnel. So, yeah, I like that as well. But you know what? I think it'll be Derek Stingley Jr. for Houston. And I think the only thing, because the NFL is a little bit different where I think they will, even if Houston struggles, but if he puts up great numbers, I think people will still look at him. Definitely now that Lovie Smith defense, we all know, I don't hate to say this, put it out there like that. He can have a Peanut Tillman type of influence, a type of impact on this team. Not saying that he is going to be Peanut Tillman or better or whatever, but I think he'll be a guy that could, especially in that defense, has an act for making big plays. A lot of people have been worried about, his tape for the last 2 years, but to me, I still think he can still play. Just a lot of things happen. And also just the turnover with LSU. I mean, you think about it, half the guys that was a part of that 19 team, they're in the NFL with him now. So it's one of those things where, hey, you're gonna look good amongst if you playing against the pros, you're in 19 where you're playing against guys who are now making tremendous impact in the league now, and you probably was the standout of all of them. Like he literally, like if he could have actually came out, he would have been one of the top picks in that 2020 draft. So
that's definitely high praise for him.
Yeah. And I definitely think he could definitely be most likely the defensive rookie of the year. So Let's see. Next superlative. What we got here? Let's see. Quarterback with the most successful career. What you got, Jordan?
It really depends on who you put around these quarterbacks, as we all know. I could easily say Kenny Pickett just because of what Mike Tomlin does with these quarterbacks. But will Tomlin be around for the next 5 to 10 years? Will Pittsburgh be a threat to win that division each and every year? They certainly could with Pickett, but honestly, I could also go with Sam Howell, the guy you guys picked. But I'm going a little off the ball a little bit. I know he was supposed to be a first round pick and he went into the second round, Malik Willis, just because I think with that, the young core receivers that they have, and then who knows how long Ryan Tannehill is going to actually play. If he develops with those wide receivers, he's going to be tough to stop.
Yeah. It's funny. I thought I wrestled with it as well too. I look at a guy like a Kenny Pickett, which I think it's funny that to kind of counter what you were saying. I still think Mike Tomlin will probably still be around in 5 years, pretty much if he wants to stay. I think at this point, I think he gets the keys to Pittsburgh regardless. He can write off it, like you said. And I think just a simple fact of just like. Boy, so he'll have the continuity. He'll have more of a opportunity, and then plus with Pittsburgh, I think they're gonna put him in the right position. So I think that's as well too. But I actually agree with you. I definitely think it's gonna be Malik Willis as well. I think him going to Tennessee and another team. I think Mike Vrabel doesn't look like he's going nowhere anytime soon. I think just the success that he has, and bringing that in, and then so. I definitely think that, and like you said, that wide receiver group, they'll grow together. Also, I'm not sure as far as what you'll get as far as from Derrick Henry down the line in these next 5 years, but he'll definitely be helping his development. And then I just think, like you said, Ryan Tannehill struggles. Like, you think about it, they could be calling for Malik Willis. Like, I mean, so we all know the struggles definitely coming off of that number one seed in AFC, then losing, in embarrassing fashion to Cincinnati and him throwing all those interceptions. If he has a game like that, regardless, it could be week one, hell, it could be the preseason. They want Malik Willis out there. So
that is definitely true. And we saw that, what was it? The first play of the game, I believe, was an interception.
Yep.
And you don't want to start a game like that, especially when you had a week off. Derrick Henry is amazing. And yeah, I definitely agree with you that Derrick Henry is going to take the pressure off of Malik Willis whenever that's going to be. But the thing I know about running backs, and so do you, is they typically age pretty quickly in the NFL. So I don't know who their backup is, but I definitely think if Derrick Henry is there, that definitely takes the pressure off of Malik Willis to say, oh, I got to throw it every down. I got to be the playmaker. He definitely will, be more comfortable in the pocket. And of course, like you said, if Ryan Tannehill has a bad game, whether that's week one, preseason, down the line where they're trying to make the playoffs, and he has a bad game where he throws 4 or 5 interceptions, the fans are definitely going to want Malik Willis. Will he be ready? Who knows? But I could definitely see a situation there, and that they have created controversy with that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it was the right pick, but how long are they going to go with Ryan Tannehill? That is the question that I cannot answer at this point.
And then I think, especially the news that came out today about him saying, "Hey, that's not my responsibility to be Malik Willis's, mentor." And I'm like, I'm telling people, you have to embrace these things, because you're going to be richly rewarded somewhere. It may not be Tennessee, but you go somewhere else, and that's going to keep you making money. Like you look at like an Alex Smith. He became like the bridge quarterback to a lot of guys that, a lot of guys that we, so you look at that, it's like, he's not Brett Favre. Like, Brett Favre can say it because Brett Favre can write his own ticket. You can't. Like, you're at a point now where if you have another bad game against Tennessee, like it's literally the point where you're gonna probably be a backup quarterback, and you just need to sit down and embrace the fact that hey, I might be the bridge quarterback for somebody down the line. So embrace it.
Well, and that's true. I mean, how many veteran quarterbacks have we heard saying, "I'm not here to develop, this player"? We heard it with Aaron Rodgers, and look
Yep.
at what Jordan Love has become. Not a very good quarterback. Why? Because Aaron Rodgers isn't helping him develop.
Right. And guess what's gonna happen? And Jordan Love is gonna walk clean out of Green Bay because and literally they wasted the first round pick for nothing
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't sign this man to a long term deal, and he gonna play that contract out. So yeah. So rounding out our superlatives, which member of the class of the draft class of 2022 will be headed down to 2121 George Hallis Drive in Canton, Ohio? Who
A
you
play,
got?
a place that I really haven't been and that I really want to go to.
Yes.
This is going to be off the ball, and I know a lot of people are going to say, it could be a high draft pick, but I'm going with somebody who's drafted by the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going with Trey McBride. Yeah, I'm a little biased because he's a Colorado guy, but I definitely see a Shannon Sharp and Tony Gonzalez in his play. What I mean by that is he can catch the football. He's a great route runner. He can block. If Arizona uses him right and he stays there his entire career, he may end up breaking. Maybe I shouldn't say break Tony Gonzalez and Shannon Sharp's records because Shannon Sharp's second and Tony Gonzalez is first, but he could put up some of those big numbers. So I mean, again, it all depends on health, but I definitely like Trey McBride as a likely Hall of Famer just because of what he can bring to the Arizona Cardinals, assuming they use him right.
Yeah. And my answer, I think it's gonna be Aidan Hutchinson. I think he's gonna be a guy, and I know we look at Detroit as a team like, oh, that's where most guys' career goes to an NFL graveyard. But I got a strange feeling about this Detroit team going forward. I definitely think they're not gonna be, the Detroit Lions of old, where we look at, oh, well, they wasted careers of Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson. But I think he's going to be a guy, one of the guys that I think is going to lift Detroit. Not saying that they're going to be this perennial, 10-win plus team, but they're going to be a team that's going to be fighting. They're not going to be the laughing stock of the NFL anymore. I definitely think that he's going to bring some form of identity to this team. So I look at him as one of the guys that will make his way to 2121 George Hallis Drive in Canton, Ohio. And then probably a close seconds, maybe Kayvon Thibodeau. I think I think he's a guy I think he's going to defy the odds. Because a lot of people saying, well, I can see him retiring at 28, 29 years old. But if he stays to 30 plus, 34, 35 years old, he's going to put up monster numbers. So, like, to me, I look at it from the standpoint, it's probably going to be Aidan Hutchinson for me going there.
I do agree with that. If we would have done defense, I would have said the same thing.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you that Detroit is not the laughing stock anymore. They've had some pretty good drafts. It's going to take a little bit, but again, like I talked about when we were talking about defensive rookie of the year, if Aidan Hutchinson can get to the quarterback like he did in college, watch out for them. I mean, whether or not he wins a Super Bowl with the Lions, I could see him going to the playoffs. But other than that, I mean, he's definitely going to have to play well for them to succeed throughout his career. And of course, injury free, I definitely could see that.
Yeah, big time. So let's put a ball in this week's Couch Coach Live, Jordan. So, so at this point, hey, just some plugs. What you got going on? Promote sportscoop.com, your podcast, all this. Plug away.
So as Chris mentioned, Couch Coach mentioned, I have a blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Friday at sports-scoop.com. I also, you can actually find it on my blog. I have a live stream that I post on Fridays. It's all about basically Colorado sports with a sprinkling of national sports. You can follow me on Twitter at SportsScoop1. Of course, I'm on the NBA carousel since the Suns are still in it. Unfortunately, Chris's team kind of went bye-bye and didn't really do a whole lot.
Yeah.
And then in the fall, Chris and I will be on the NFL carousel.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Yes, my NFL and NFL NBA carousel brethren. I represent the Clippers for the NBA side. Obviously, we laid the egg in the play-in games. Back to back losses. So then he made the playoffs, and then representing the Commanders on the NFL carousel. Definitely looking forward to that as well. Hopefully, I get a little bit more respect in the room this year. Hopefully, we'll do a little bit better this year, and hopefully I can brag a little bit more. I know that little 4-game win streak. I think my head couldn't fit through the screen, but then obviously I got back down to earth in
Yeah,
December.
I
So
felt the exact same thing with the three-game winning streak that we had when we were 3-0 for the Broncos, and everyone's
oh,
like, "Calm down, come back to earth." I'm like, "It's 3-0. I haven't had 3-0 in a while. Let me enjoy it."
exactly. I'm like, I'm at 500. I'm at 6-6 with an opportunity to potentially make the playoffs. You can't tell me nothing.
Exactly.
But yeah, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram under Couch Coach Live, anywhere social media, we're there. Also check out the podcast anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, you name it, we're there. And also just check out the website, couchcoachlive.com. It's more so just archives of our shows. Also, Twitter feeds, all our social media feeds on there as well. So pretty much the one-stop shop for everything Couch Coach Live on that website. So yeah, man, definitely appreciate you, Jordan, for coming on again. Always
Thanks
great
for
talking
having
with
me.
you, talking football.
I definitely enjoy my time here on Couch Coach Live, and I was on your Washington show as well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're not playing you this year, so I can't be on it.
Yeah, and we're getting ready to do a rebrand of that as well because we're going to change the name. So definitely head over to WF Guys. Our Twitter, we got 2 possible new names. So definitely vote for which one that you like. So we definitely gonna revamp that. Probably go back and swing things probably in June or so. We did a show recapping the draft on so definitely check that out as well. Just look up Washington Football Guys. We consider that was our last episode being the Washington Football Guys, and we'll change that as well. Like we said, we gonna change the name, but it's the same wall but different paint. So it'll still be the same thing, but just a different name. But yeah, definitely once again appreciate Jordan for coming on this week. Man, what a great show. We did draft recap and our superlatives. And once again, man, another great show. And we'll catch you guys next week, man. This has been this week's Couch Coach Live, and we're out.